I caught my wife cheating, but she doesn't know that I know. I've been married to Laura for 7 years, and for most of that time, I'd have told anyone who asked that we had a rock-solid relationship. We met through mutual friends, hit it off immediately, and built a life that, from the outside, probably looked pretty ideal. She's smart, kind, and driven in a way that's always inspired me. But about a month ago, I discovered something that has completely upended my view of our marriage. And here's the kicker, she has no idea that I know. It all started when Laura began acting different. Subtle changes at first, a new perfume I'd never seen before, more nights out with her work friends, and a sudden obsession with her phone. She'd laugh at messages, but never share what they were about. When I'd ask, she'd brush it off with a vague, "Oh, just something funny from Sarah or work stuff." I tried not to read too much into it. Laura's always been a social butterfly, and I didn't want to be the paranoid husband. But then there were other things, missed calls that she'd ignore, texts she'd respond to in a hurry and then delete. Once, I walked into the room while she was on her phone, and she locked the screen so fast, it might as well have been instinct. I told myself I was imagining things, that I was letting my insecurities get the better of me. But something just didn't feel right. The turning point came one Saturday afternoon. Laura was supposed to be at a yoga class, and I was tidying up the house. Her laptop was open on the kitchen counter, and a notification popped up on the screen. I wasn't trying to snoop, really, I wasn't, but the message caught my eye. It was from someone named Mike, and it read, "Can't wait to see you tonight." My stomach dropped. I didn't recognize the name, and the tone of the message didn't exactly scream work colleague. My hand shook as I clicked to open the full thread. What I found confirmed my worst fears. The messages between Laura and this Mike guy were intimate, flirty, some of them downright explicit. They talked about meeting up, about things they'd done together, and about how much they missed each other. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. How long had this been going on? Who was this guy? And how could Laura do this to me? I closed the laptop and sat there in stunned silence, my heart pounding in my chest. Part of me wanted to confront her immediately, to demand answers. But another part of me, the part that eventually won out, decided to wait. I needed more information before I acted. Over the next few weeks, I kept a close eye on Laura. I'd never thought of myself as a particularly observant person, but suddenly I was noticing everything. The way she'd smile at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. The excuses she'd make to leave the house, a last-minute work meeting, a quick coffee run, an evening out with her girls that somehow didn't include any of her usual friends. I even started tracking her location using the Find My app on her phone, something I'd never done before and felt guilty about. But I needed to know. One night, Laura said she was meeting a friend for drinks. I waited until she left, then checked her location. She wasn't at the bar she'd mentioned, she was at a hotel downtown. My heart sank. I'd hoped, foolishly, I realize now, that I was wrong, that there was some innocent explanation for everything. But there was no explaining this. I drove to the hotel and parked across the street, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I didn't know what I was going to do, burst in and confront her? Wait until she came out and see if this Mike guy was with her? In the end, I stayed in the car, my mind spinning with a mix of anger, sadness, and confusion. After about an hour, Laura came out of the hotel. She wasn't alone. A man, presumably Mike, was with her. They laughed, shared a quick kiss, and then went their separate ways. She got into her car and drove home as if nothing had happened. That night, I lay in bed next to her, unable to sleep. I'd never felt so betrayed, so hurt. But I still didn't confront her. I'm not sure why. Maybe I was afraid of what she'd say, of hearing her admit the truth out loud. Maybe I wasn't ready to face the reality of what this meant for our marriage. Or maybe, deep down, I was holding on to some sliver of hope that there was an explanation I hadn't considered. Over the next few days, I did more digging. I found more messages on her laptop and even overheard a phone call she had with Mike when she thought I was out of earshot. It was clear this wasn't just a fling. They had feelings for each other, and the thought of it made me sick. But here's the thing, Laura still has no idea that I know. I've been pretending everything is fine, going through the motions of our daily life while this secret eats away at me. I've thought about confronting her 100 times, but every time I imagine the conversation, I freeze. What if she denies it? What if she gets angry and turns it around on me? What if she decides she'd rather be with him? So now, I'm stuck. I can't keep living like this, but I don't know how to move forward. Part of me wants to confront her and demand answers. Another part of me wants to gather more evidence, to make sure I have everything I need before I make my move. And a small, stubborn part of me still hopes there's some way to salvage our marriage, even though I know how unlikely that is. To make matters worse, I've started to see changes in myself. I'm more withdrawn, quieter around friends and family. They've noticed too. My best friend, Mark, even pulled me aside last weekend and asked if I was okay. I wanted to tell him everything, to unload this burden, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. What if he judged me for staying silent? What if he told me to leave her, and I wasn't ready to hear it? Meanwhile, Laura's behavior hasn't changed. If anything, she seems happier, lighter. It's like the weight of whatever she's been doing has lifted her spirits, while it crushes mine. She still laughs at her phone, still goes out for meetings, still kisses me goodbye with that same smile I've loved for years. And every time she does, it feels like another knife twisting in my chest. One night, I decided to follow her. I told her I had a late work meeting, kissed her goodbye, and waited until she left. I tailed her car, keeping my distance so she wouldn't notice. She drove to a restaurant across town, one I'd never been to before. I parked a few spaces away and watched as she walked in. 10 minutes later, Mike showed up. They hugged, not a friendly hug, but the kind that lingers just a little too long. They sat at a corner table, laughing and talking like they didn't have a care in the world. I sat in my car for over an hour, watching them through the window. It felt surreal, like I was watching a movie instead of my own life. At one point, Mike reached across the table and took her hand. She didn't pull away. Instead, she smiled, her eyes lighting up in a way I hadn't seen in years. That was the moment I knew, whatever this was, it wasn't just a fling. It was something deeper. When they left, I followed them again. This time, they went to his place. I didn't go in, of course, but I didn't need to. I knew what was happening. I sat in my car, staring at the darkened windows of his apartment, and felt a wave of emotions I couldn't even begin to sort through. Anger, sadness, betrayal, even guilt for not confronting her sooner, for letting it get to this point. Now, I'm at a crossroads. I can't keep living like this, pretending everything is fine while my marriage falls apart behind the scenes. But I'm terrified of what comes next. If I confront her, will she admit to it? Will she choose me, or will she decide she'd rather be with him? And if she does choose me, can I ever trust her again? I don't know what to do. All I know is that I can't keep going like this. So I'm asking you, what would you do in my shoes? Have you ever been in a situation like this? How do you even begin to pick up the pieces? I'd love to hear your thoughts, because right now, I feel like I'm drowning, and I don't know how to save myself. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like.